About 4 weeks ago, we did a video talking about this little sucker right here. This is a spring compressor tool that we got from the guys at Auto Krafters. And I said that we would come back and show you how to operate this thing, not knowing that very shortly after that, I would get COVID. I'd be down for like 4 weeks. So today what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna do just that. We're gonna show you how this thing operates, how to set it up, how to use it, and when it may not work.
Restoration of a classic Ford is a journey of discovery. Let Auto Krafters help you with yours. We offer quality parts for Falcon, Fairlane, F-Series, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto. Contact us today.
All right, so with your spring compressor, now we're doing this on a 65 Falcon, 64 would be the same. Anything that has the tall shock tower tops on it, you're going to want to take this out of play because this is for a 1965 to 1970 Mustang. So this will come off and it'll be just using this. Now I've assembled this incorrectly. This goes first. So put a dab of grease in here and that'll also grease the threads and make that a lot easier to work with. You put this on and you put this on and then the large nut goes on after that. And you'll leave that up at the very top because you don't know how deep you're going to need to be. All right, now, one thing I wanted to talk about real quickly here is the fact that with this, you're not going to be able to drop this all the way in on most spring perches because the nuts are going to be too big to go and fit on there easily. So what you'll probably have to do is kind of hold the spring compressor up a little bit off the spring perch, start the nut on there on both sides, and then you can drop it into play a little along. In other words, you're going to want to go ahead and get these things started up all the way as far down as they will go, like this, and then drop them all the way into play, and then you can go ahead and screw everything in a little easier. But if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to get this stuff to start because these nuts are a little bigger than your typical shock nut. But the problem you run into anyway, when you're putting shocks on a classic car, anybody that's done a little bit will know, you're going to probably be doing this if you put shocks in the car as well, because most of the time the isolators and the shock isolator washer will not clear the center stack in this, so you're going to have to kind of muck with that anyway. It's a little tip for you when you're using one of these type of spring compressors that is basically like putting a shock in there and to just do what I just showed you. So there you go, there's that, and we're going to move on this. Then this will insert into the shock tower after you remove the shock inside of the spring. Now I'm not going to completely install this one. I'm just going to lightly install it so that you can see how it goes in, because I want to talk about an issue you can run into. All right, I've got this set up for a Falcon, and what I wanted to tell you is if you have roller spring perches on the car, it becomes a lot easier because your spring is not under an incredible amount of tension provided by the spring perch. 90% of your spring perches out there are vulcanized rubber. In other words, they take that rubber and they mold everything together so it has a sitting position. And a lot of times it's putting a ton of stress on that spring whenever you're in here. In other words, it rocks the spring one way or the other. So with the roller spring perch, you're going to be okay if it's fully extended like this one is, trying to take everything out. My gut is that if you don't have roller spring perches and you're trying to overcome this and it's not all busted out like a lot of them are, you're going to have a problem trying to use this type of spring compressor, and you're going to probably have to use the one I'm showing you, which is an internal clamp style and a lot of guys don't like working with. If this does work, like I've got this one set up now because this is a roller spring perch and it does have a greater level of mobility to it, you'll take and clamp this thing down, you'll go in and run your nut all the way down to the top of this. Another place that you'll want to do some grease work is to put some grease on the threads. Also put some grease between the nut and the washer here and the top of this bearing assembly. The other thing you want to make sure is that you got your shock top completely set down. This one I can't do it because this wrench arrow is so worn out. The carriage bolts are not wanting to stay. In other words, if I try to put the carriage bolt in there and try to put the nut down on top of it, the carriage bolt is just spinning inside of the mount, and I don't want to have to go back in and try to take those back out. They were a pain to get out, and I don't want to have to do it twice. So we'll get those replaced with some stuff from AMK through the guys at Auto Krafters. They carry the full carriage bolt and nut assembly for these shock tops. We are also missing one of the shock tops for this car. I have no idea where it went, but it's on the other side, and it's not on the other side because it's just flat ass gone. So what you'll want to do is with your shock top, this piece here, bolted firmly in place like it should be with a shock absorber in there, you're going to want to go then and start using a wrench to take this and spin it down to compress that spring. But you'll also, after you get the spring compressed and there's no pressure on the shock tower, after everything's fully up in the air, you'll want to take these two bolts here loose so that you can then pick everything up, take the lower or the upper control arm out of play, and then drop this back out if you're replacing springs. If you're only doing an upper control arm replacement on these, you'll basically just pull, the spring will come up out of the way, and then you'll take the new upper control arm, mount it to your spindle, and you should be good to go. Now, there is another way to skin this cat. And if you have the engine and all in the engine bay, you can make your life a lot easier and a lot less of a hassle by going in and making this tool that I'm showing you right here. Now, this tool is basically nothing but a piece of angle iron that I've got dimensions that I'll put up on our web page, and also I will list a link to it below me here, along with a link directly to it in the description below that you can go check it out. This is basically a tool that if your suspension is under load, in other words, you have an engine in the engine bay and you're wanting to change out springs or do a front suspension rebuild, this piece will allow you to do just that. This section of the tool sits down inside of this cavity below your upper control arm, and then this piece right here will mount inside the upper control arm, shown like I've shown you here. And what that does is it keeps the suspension compressed whenever you pick the car up, because you have to pick the car up in order to do what we're doing. So then you're not having to work as hard to compress your spring because it's already mostly compressed due to using this tool that I'm showing you here. So that's your other way to do this. Keep in mind when you're doing this kind of stuff that these springs, sometimes you may not, like I said before, be able to make this thing work, and you will have to use the clamp style compressor. I have both of them on hand for just that purpose. This one would work fine over here. I think it would be a big fight on the other side where it has an original cradle for the spring. If it's a roller spring perch, I can take this thing and actually move it back and forth, and all I'm fighting is the fully extended weight of the spring. That's really fairly easy. All right, that's our fast little video on showing you how this particular type of spring compressor operates. I am not going to completely compress this because this is all brand new stuff that we got from Auto Krafters and Eden Detroit Spring with our springs, so I'm not going to take this apart to go through the whole process. It should be good enough to get you where you need to go. Now, what I'd like for you to do is go out and check out our Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, we get monthly meetings with me on Zoom. We have a lot of fun. We can have anywhere from 10 to 20 people in there a lot of times. It's kind of chaotic, but it's a gas. You should check it out. Another thing we're doing with our Patreon account now too is we're also doing custom special videos for Patreon. It does not have any effect on what we do here at Manic Mechanic or over at Autorestomod. It's just an additional thing for us to thank them for their monetary support that they supply us with to help bring people like my camera guy Andrew on board, who is now also one of our editors. So thanks to you guys that are doing that. Another thing I'd like for you to do is to go out and subscribe to the channel. Now more than ever, it's important because YouTube is mucking about with the algorithms again. You know what that means? Go look it up. It's basically how to, mess with people's channels. Best way to put it. But in any case, go out and subscribe. Click the bell for notification. If you do not click that bell, you're never going to know what we're doing, and we will probably fall off the face of your little earth. So we don't want that to happen to you or anyone that you love. Now, speaking of loving people, do me a favor, go out and like each other, love each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. Now, I'm going to take all this stuff out and then maybe somehow entice Logan to come over here and do the other side, which he has not done yet. And it's right here now. It's not like you can get away from it. But we don't have the brakes yet, and we need the brakes, and I got to call people for that. And gosh, I'm making myself tired yet again.